to start off this final session, it's my pleasure to introduce Jennifer Dent from BioHealth Global Ventures to talk about, well, I'll let you introduce what you're going to be talking about. It's the WIPO initiative. Very pleasure to have you here, Jennifer.
Thanks very much. Thank you. First of all, it's a real pleasure to be in Dundee, and I very much appreciate the invitation from BioDundee and Diane Taylor and Alison Beattie for inviting me here to talk to you today about WIPO research, which is a relatively new initiative that's been launched. It was launched in October of 2011, and it's an initiative about sharing innovation in the fight against neglected tropical diseases. It's a partnership between the organization I work for, BioVentures for Global Health, which is a nonprofit organization based in San Francisco, together with the World Intellectual Property Organization, which we refer to as WIPO. And WIPO are based, they're headquartered in Geneva. They're a UN agency. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what WIPO research is as an initiative and consortium, talk to you about the partnership hub activities within WIPO research, some of the resources that we make available to our members through WIPO research, and then I'll just touch on the database for a minute so that you'll know where that is so that you can look at that. And if there are any questions, I'd be happy to address those at the end. So WIPO research is a consortium that is led by the World Intellectual Property Organization in partnership with BioVentures for Global Health and our members. The purpose and goal of WIPO research is to make intellectual property and know-how, including compounds, compound libraries, expertise, and other resources, available to our members to support their research and development of products, drugs, vaccines, and diagnostics for neglected tropical diseases, malaria, and tuberculosis. Through WIPO research, members get access to these resources with no licensing fees, and when products are developed under a WIPO research agreement, those products are made available to the least developed countries with no royalties attached to them, and our members are also committed to making any products developed through a WIPO research collaboration available to populations in other countries in an equitable manner. And what we do through WIPO research is we very actively facilitate and coordinate collaborations between our members to make all of this happen. So looking at the players in WIPO research and the different roles, first of all, it is a voluntary consortium. So our members, like the University of Dundee, do not sign a legally binding agreement to join WIPO research. They send a letter agreeing to endorse and abide by a set of guiding principles. The World Intellectual Property Organization, WIPO, is the secretariat of WIPO research, and they provide governance and organize a steering committee of members to oversee the consortium. The organization I work for, BioVentures for Global Health, is the partnership hub administrator of WIPO research. And I'll tell you a little bit about our partnering activities in a minute. Our members are really the critical component of WIPO research because they both contribute their intellectual property resources, their know-how, their data, their expertise in different fields, and our members also access those resources to support and advance their research for neglected tropical diseases. And our members join WIPO research in three capacities. As provider members, so for instance, AstraZeneca, Pfizer, Merck, join because they have resources to share with researchers that are working on neglected tropical diseases. User members, like Emory University, wants to access those resources and various resources to support the development of their research in neglected tropical diseases. Some members, like the University of Dundee, and actually most members, join as both providers of expertise and resources, as well as users who want to access and use the resources that other members provide to the consortium. And then we have supporter members like the WHO, who don't actually have actual resources to share, and they don't actually perform research on neglected tropical diseases, but they are aligned with the goals and objectives of WIPO research, and they want to provide whatever support they can to the consortium. So I'll just touch on the guiding principles, and they really are just that. They are guiding principles that our members agree to endorse. And I think the most important and relevant terms to certainly all of our pharma and biotech members, as well as our academic members, are related to the requirement that if Professor Wyatt's group at the Drug Discovery Unit wants to access a diverse compound library from an organization like AstraZeneca, there is no fee attached to him getting access, his group getting access to that compound library, and eventually in licensing anything that he and his group would like to have access to through that library. There will also be no royalty fees that are charged back on the final product that is developed for the least developed countries. And our members will also consider, in good faith, making products available to other countries that don't qualify as least developed countries, but have populations that need access to these important new inventions, drugs and vaccines. Users, like the University of Dundee, would have rights to own any new intellectual property that was developed through the sharing of resources within WIPO research. And any new IP that's developed in WIPO research, we encourage our members to make that intellectual property available to other members to access to support their research and development. And license agreements are individually negotiated, like most agreements are. So, for instance, if the University of Dundee formed an agreement with AstraZeneca, it would be the Technology Transfer Office at the University of Dundee working with AstraZeneca's business development and legal groups to determine what are the terms of that agreement, keeping in line with the guiding principles. So here is a list of our current provider members and user members within WIPO research. We have about 8 of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the world on board as provider members of WIPO research, including AstraZeneca, Pfizer, Novartis, Merck, GlaxoSmithKline, Sanofi, Eisai. We also have leading academic research organizations who are doing very important research in the neglected tropical disease field, and we heard a little bit about that this morning from Professor Wyatt. We have a number of members like Swiss Tropical and Public Health Institute, Liverpool School of Tropical Medicine, and I think a number of other familiar research organizations. And here's the list of our supporter members. You'll also notice that that RARE, the Walter Reed Army Institute of Research, is a provider, user, and supporter in WIPO research. And RARE is one of the, they've been working in research, certainly in malaria and dengue and Chagas for a very long time, and have a number of resources that they make available to our members. WIPO research is focused on developing products around 21 diseases, and this list includes those diseases. It's the list of 19 neglected tropical diseases on the WHO's list, as well as malaria and tuberculosis. You'll see a fair bit of overlap from Paul Wyatt's the diseases that the Drug Discovery Unit here works on as well. So So the Partnership Hub is, it's the area that the organization I work for, BioVentures for Global Health, is responsible for. And we focus our activities around identifying and facilitating collaboration opportunities between members. We also have a role in recruiting new members to WIPO research. BVGH focuses on recruitment of user members to WIPO research, whereas WIPO focuses on recruiting provider members. We both overlap with those responsibilities a fair bit. But we've actually exceeded our recruitment goal for 2012. We exceeded that goal in the first 2 months of 2012. So our main efforts are focused around identifying and establishing collaborations at this time. And to be successful in establishing collaborations on behalf of our members, we actively engage with members to really understand the type of collaborations they're interested in entering into through WIPO research, as well as the contributions they think will be most valuable to researchers that are working in the neglected tropical disease fields. And then on the user side, we need to understand the diseases of interest to our user members, as well as the specific resources that members are interested in accessing, and the support that would be helpful to their specific research programs. And in going through this process, it's important that we build relationships with members so that members are comfortable when they actually have a question or a need and they're wondering if they may be able to access support from any other members in WIPO research. We want our members to feel comfortable reaching out to BioVentures for Global Health to make inquiries about what exactly is available through our database and through the consortium. So how exactly do we go about establishing collaborations? We do this in parallel, working in parallel in a number of ways. We field requests from members. Some of our members know exactly what they want, and they come to us and they tell us, we want diverse libraries around kinase inhibitors, we want libraries around statins, and we want support or expertise around formulation development, scale-up and manufacturing. So some of our members are very specific, but what I find and what I expected would be more the case is that most researchers don't necessarily go outside their own institutions looking for help with their research program. They work within their own networks to find solutions. And so WIPO Research creates a new network where we actively look into the contributions, the research programs, and we match complementary or research contributions and needs with each other, and we present those opportunities to our members. And to date, I'd say that's how we've been most successful in facilitating new conversations between members and facilitating interest in exploring collaboration opportunities through WIPO research. It's really about proactively looking at where our members can benefit from the resources and the expertise of other members. And I can tell you that most members are actually very appreciative when you come to them and ask them if someone's expertise in one area or someone's compound libraries might be of interest to them, when we know they have an interest in screening certain compounds for certain diseases. So it kind of looks like this, in that our organization, BVGH, kind of sits in the middle of this network of providers and users, and we look to our providers who are contributing expertise and IP, and who want to collaborate with researchers working in neglected diseases, and then we make matches between those providers and users, and we identify collaboration opportunities and facilitate initial discussions between members so they can start to explore possibility of a collaboration. So the type of agreements and collaborations that we expect to have in place within WIPO research, material transfer agreements, I think will be quite common where organizations want access to compounds, specific compounds or compound libraries, confidentiality agreements. Also, a number of our members, again including AstraZeneca, have expressed a desire and a willingness to host researchers from other sites who want to build their capacity and expertise in a specific area. GSK has their Tres Cantos facility available to members of WIPO research. It's also available more broadly to researchers, but it's something that they're really encouraging us to make our members within WIPO research available to the support that GSK is willing to provide to researchers working in neglected tropical diseases. And as well, AstraZeneca has made their expertise in a number of different departments available for researchers to bring either a project in or come in and work on an in-house project to build their knowledge base in a specific area of interest. We expect to see licensing agreements and any other agreements that will support the development of products for neglected diseases. Some of the resources that we make available to our members, we have a monthly newsletter that we call the Snapshot. And this newsletter is it's distributed to our member organizations, to individuals within our member organizations. It's currently distributed to over 16 individuals, and it presents what are the latest partnering activities, collaboration discussions that are occurring within WIPO research. Some of our members want us to more broadly announce what their research interests are and what their special requests might be. So we have a section where, for instance, we can say the Center for World Health and Medicine in St. Louis want access to METAP1 inhibitors or HSP90 inhibitors. We also, my colleague Rupa Ramamurthy, who leads our scientific outreach, prepares a highlighted contribution section every month, which highlights some of the contributions in our database and how those contributions can support the development of products for neglected diseases. And Rupa also develops a quarterly contribution piece, which is a two-page scientific piece directed toward scientists, and it highlights some of the latest literature around some contributions and how that literature supports those contributions being valuable to neglected tropical disease researchers. We have also developed a communications toolkit, so as our members are out at meetings and they want to talk about their participation in WIPO research and tell others what WIPO research is, we have a slide set that we make available to all of our members. We have one-page overviews targeting scientists and policymakers. WIPO has developed a flyer about WIPO research, and we have a scientific poster that our members can alter and represent at different meetings with their own information or data incorporated into that poster. And then we maintain a list of key neglected tropical disease meetings that some of our members will be attending. And we have the database. The WIPO research database is managed by WIPO, and it provides a searchable public database that contains intellectual property that's accessible through WIPO research, know-how, compounds, compound libraries, technologies, and other resources. And this library can be searched through the WIPO research website. This is a screenshot of www.wiporesearch.org, and you can see on on your top left there that there is a database search. And if you click on that tab, it will take you into the database. And you will come to a database where you can then search that database by provider, by disease, by type of data. And in a matter of time, I'm not going to take you through a detailed search today, but I encourage anyone that's interested to go to the database and have a look at some of the resources that are available in the database. What we often find, though, is that our members are interested in compound libraries or targets that have not been actively contributed by our provider members. And our provider members are very open to any inquiry to gain access to resources from their organization if for the purpose of developing products for these 21 diseases. And you know, I have to say our provider members have been very supportive and open in providing access to those resources to share with members. So we always ask people, don't be shy, don't just limit your search to the database. It can be very helpful to just send an email to BBGH to see what else may be accessible. And I'm going to stop there, and I'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. That's a real tour de force event, which is a very worthwhile activity. So thank you very much. A few nice plugs for AstraZeneca there, so your check's in the post.
Everyone heard that, right?
I'll cut that out of the recording, okay? I'll be at the door. So, any questions for Jennifer? I have a quick question. You showed one of your slides, I think you said about 8 of the top 10 big pharma were supporting this. The other 2, what reasons did you give for not joining?
Well, that's a bit of a loaded question. Actually, we are continuing discussions with several of the other biggest pharma companies. And, you know, we've had tremendous support from the pharma companies that are on board. And in fact, Campbell, you probably don't know this, but it was just a couple of weeks ago that Ian Reed is the CEO of Pfizer. Ian sent a letter to, I think, 4 CEOs of, I'd say, the next largest pharmaceutical companies, encouraging them to come on board as provider members of WIPO research so that they too would be sharing their assets with researchers working in the neglected tropical disease fields. But we also have had discussions where I think there's just so much change going on at some pharmaceutical companies that with everything that's going on, they just haven't made the decision yet. And companies like Bayer, J&J have shown continual interest in coming on board as a member, and I expect that they will at some point. I think it's just all in timing and what companies are dealing with day to day.
Yeah, questions. Jennifer, I'm interested to know a little bit more about the commercialization model that operates here, and like cross-licensing or royalties, or so, you know, big pharma is not known for altruism, so
Exactly.
how does it work?
Yeah. So, you know, the terms and the guiding principles they're pretty loose, really, in that, you know, there are no upfront licensing fees, as I said, and there will be no royalty streams for the least developed countries. And the terms were kept relatively loose to ensure that we got significant participation from big pharma and even from academic institutions. And the terms that will define commercialization of products will be determined between the parties that put those agreements in place. So if it's the University of Dundee and AstraZeneca, they will determine what are the commercialization terms. But what I can say is that the pharma companies, they're not making their IP, their compound libraries, and their compounds available to researchers in these fields so that they can make a profit at some point in the future. There's a real commitment within the consortium of getting products and new solutions to the patients that are most in need. And WIPO will provide services when we get to the point, and I hope we get to that point where we're actually defining commercialization terms. WIPO will provide guidance and services around what those terms are, but ultimately they will be decided by the parties. I think there'd be a lot of criticism if the terms didn't reflect the commitment of the consortium, which is to make products available in an equitable fashion to these populations. We also have members like DNDi and MMV who, as PDPs, have that same real commitment in making products available in an equitable fashion. So I think the influence will influence what those agreements look like, but we're not close to that decision-making point yet.